Hello, welcome to Film Talk, a series of classes on film analysis. My name is Bob Dutton. I am the Managing Director of the Martha's Vineyard Film Society. We are located on Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, and you can go to our website, www.mvfilmsociety, to learn more about who we are and what we do. Also, if you care to make a donation or you are interested in purchasing or renewing your membership, you may go to that website as well. We are a nonprofit organization, so we depend not only on ticket sales, but on donations, grants, and some sponsorships in order for us to keep our doors open. So today we're looking at something that is one of my favorite subjects when discussing film. And I'm going to start off by asking you to think about a grain of salt, a single grain of salt. Now, I know you know what a grain of salt looks like and how big it is. Now, I want you to think about a glass of water. And then take that grain of salt, put it in the glass of water, and mix it up. Just even in your mind. You don't have to do this literally. This water is now technically salt water. You won't be able to taste the salt. But any scientist would take that water and analyze it. They say this is salt water because it contains a certain amount of salt that it should not necessarily have in it. If you add a couple more grains of salt and dissolve them, you might begin, at some point, you're eventually going to be able to taste the salt. Now, your ability to taste the salt may be different than somebody else's who cannot taste it while you can, or can while you cannot. So the idea behind that is that theme exists within a story, whether you can detect it or not. As we mentioned in a previous class, that theme and character and conflict and setting, those flavors are found throughout the film, the story. And the idea that you can pick up theme by what somebody says in one scene. There's one little line or maybe a word choice will later on let you understand. It's like, oh, they use those words very specifically because it indicates something about the theme that the author, the screenwriter, the playwright is trying to imbue on us. And so your ability to perceive theme may come from the ability to spend more and more time with it. We're going to look at some short films today, two of which have, actually three of which have no dialogue whatsoever. And so you understand that the theme is based on actions, not on words necessarily. So with that in mind, let me move a little further on with this whole concept of what I'm talking about. Sorry, I'm shuffling my notes around here for just a minute. So another thing I'd like you to think about theme is interpreting messages. And I want to use, for example, poetry, particularly Robert Frost's poem of Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. This is the one that starts off, whose woods are these I do not know, and ends with the line, and miles to go before I sleep. And this is a simple, relatively simple poem. I believe it's only 12, 16, 15 lines, something like 15 lines. But it can be interpreted in many different ways. So you could say that this is a poem that is about the appreciation of nature, and you could justify that. You could also say that it is about taking a vacation from responsibility, and you could justify that as well. You could go even a step further and say this is an insight into the contemplation of suicide. Now, if you can justify your answers, they're not wrong, and there's a way that you see, you may see things in a way that someone else does not. That says something about how we look at films. The message that I get out of a film may not be the message that you get out of a film, and that's okay. But if you can justify it, then it's not wrong. And sometimes we find themes because of the emotional state that we are in. We're looking for particular themes. And so when we find things that we really can latch onto, we're going to stick with that as much as we possibly can. But you don't have to. You can also listen to what other people have to say and challenge them because sometimes you say, well, this line of dialogue tells me something else. And so those conversations are also good for you to help develop that sensitivity so that you can taste theme as if it was just a single grain of salt in a glass of water, that you have developed a sensitivity to theme. I have noticed lately that I can watch things and listen to the dialogue, and I know that dialogue, oh, that line is ambiguous because it means one thing, but thematically it can mean something much different. And for example, the Netflix TV series The Crown is so beautifully written. Peter Morgan is the writer, and I listened to those, and the first time I was like, oh, this dialogue, I know that he's not talking about that. He's talking about something much better. And so you should develop those by every time you watch a short story, go through it. Analyze the plot, analyze the characters, analyze the themes. That'll make you much more capable when you have something much more complicated. So with that in mind, sorry, that's my little break. I'm going to lead you into the wonderful world of the Wizard of Oz today. And in doing so, I want to first describe the plot of the Wizard of Oz in 3 sentences. A girl wants to run away from home. She gets hit on the head. She doesn't want to run away anymore. When she wakes up, it's like, wait a minute. So the Wizard of Oz is about a girl wanting to run away, getting hit on the head, and not wanting to run away anymore. Technically, that's what the plot is, because all that other stuff is just this fantasy world that's inside her brain, as far as we know. And so today we're going to look at the Wizard of Oz and understand why Dorothy changed her mind and what she really wanted. She didn't necessarily want an adventure. So we're going to take a look at the wonderful world of the Wizard of Oz. And I'm going to start off with this first scene in terms of how Professor Marvel understands what Dorothy wants. We will return to more of the Wizard of Oz in a while. But first, a commercial. Here's a commercial from the early 1990s, starring Jerry Seinfeld for American Express. This is a television commercial that is a complete story. So here it is. Enjoy.
So I got off the elevator and said, what is this, the 7th inning stretch? American Express.
Lovely.
Let's do the whole country. I'm a little light on the lingo.
Getting a full gander down the front with me.
All right.
We've got Cornish pasties, bangers and mash, public sweet, and lovely toad in the oven.
That was a wicked googly. So I took the butchers up the apples and pears and said, what is this, the tea interval? All over the world, you can do more with the American Express card.
So don't leave home without it. Now, the quality of the video that's the best we could find, unfortunately. But the story that is in that 30-second TV commercial is the story of Jerry Seinfeld is not getting laughs with a British audience. He says, how can I go about getting laughs? They don't understand my jokes. And so he goes around, he talks to people, he spends his money to try to figure out how to get some of the British lingo into his system so that they can laugh at his jokes and he can tell jokes that they say, oh, I get that. And so the theme of this TV commercial is use the American Express card, it'll get you what you want, or provide you an opportunity to get the things that are essential for you to reach your goals. Now, ultimately, that's what any TV commercial wants to imbue, is that the theme is use our product or our service so that your life can be better, that you can make other people happier, that you can be more fulfilled, whether you can make more money, you can be more well liked, whatever it is that they're trying to sell you, that's the theme. And so they're going to try to tell you a story and try to get that theme, saying, see, this is somebody who used our product or our service, and this is what has happened to them. Don't you want to be like them? That is theme. But for more than that, let's take a look at some short films. Now, understanding theme requires us, if anything, it requires us to be able to understand the message. So the theme is a message. We think about Aesop's fables, where there's a moral in every lesson, and that's what we're looking at. What is the theme, the message, the moral, the spine, the idea, the lesson, the wisdom achieved from somebody's journey? And usually you don't get that until somebody has finished their journey, because they can figure out what they needed to do in order to achieve their goal. And by understanding what they needed to do to achieve their goal, that makes them a little bit smarter. And so that wisdom can be imparted on others, or to others. So the films I'm going to show you, this first film has no dialogue. And there's a reason it has no dialogue, and that is because it plays more internationally. You don't have to worry about people understanding the language, but it also allows for a greater interpretation. So we often get confused thinking that what people tell us is the truth. But I could tell you that I love you or I hate you in the same tone of voice, and you wouldn't know. And if I don't know you, that wouldn't make any sense. And we've all gone up to our dogs, those people who have dogs, and we've said things to them. It's like, oh, you're a terrible dog. Oh, you're just the worst dog in town. And the dog is wagging its tail because it understands the way that you say something, not necessarily what you're saying. And so you take the idea of a short film having no dialogue, is it allows you to interpret it and also be very specific in terms of the actions. And so if you follow the actions, not necessarily the words, but you follow the actions, they will start to tell you the story. And in animation, the animators will focus on particular things, and particularly this first one, which has very little in it. Pay careful attention. This is called The Gift. Now, with The Gift, which you had just watched, you noticed that the characters were just line drawings. But there's something unusual about them, and that is what we would say the male character and the female character is they have the ability to open up their chests and a little door to their bodies. And the male character takes out a blue ball and gives it to the female character. Now, this is not a story about a blue ball. The blue ball obviously represents something else. It is metaphoric, so it symbolizes something else than a blue ball. And if you watch what these characters do in relation to each other in terms of what they're doing, you'll see that the female character does not give anything to the male character. The female character also seems to get upset when the male character is not doing what she wants, when he's talking to another female character or paying attention to that other female character. She doesn't like it. And so we get a sense that the relationship is a bit one-sided here, is that he has given her this blue ball and she has given him nothing. And so eventually it's over. And then another female character shows up, and this new female character shares her blue ball with him. He has no blue ball anymore. He's in other words, he is empty on the inside. So the fact that she gives him something, he gives her a hug, as if to say, what? And if you understand what a wordless story is trying to say, what the characters are trying to say by their actions, you'll understand what's important to them, and their reactions will give you a sense of what is motivating them in their movements and their actions towards others. So the blue ball, we can probably figure out, is love. You know, it would be a little too clear if he just took out a red heart and gave it to the girl, say, here's a red heart, and she takes her heart and gives him, and the new girl gives him half of her heart. It's like, oh, okay. It's a sense of love. And the fact that, you know, she kept some love for herself. Because when he had no love, he had no blue ball, he had no love to give. That was it. And if his love was not enough for that first female character, it was not meant to be. So here is another short film with no dialogue. This one is what I would probably guess is father and son. This film is called Alike. Enjoy. with a like, much like the gift beforehand, no dialogue, and color seems to be very important. In this sense, both the father and the son are distinct colors, and sort of an orange color and a blue color. And the fact that those colors can fade within them and then come back, why? Why do those colors come back? What happens in each of the incidences in which the color changes within their bodies? It can be through a sadness. You see that the boy, when he gets to a point where he cannot be able to express his joy to anyone with any satisfaction and be allowed to embrace that joy, the color drains from him. The father, when he's at work, the color drains from him while he's at work, when he sees more and more work built up. But his color is restored when he embraces his child after school. See, so there's something there. I mean, it's a very distinct change in who he is. He's come back to life. He's come back to color. And in a world where there is very little color, that's important. If you notice that the park where the musician plays is basically the only bright spot in town. It draws your focus visually, but it also should draw your focus in terms of character. So the little boy sees the musician and gets great joy out of this and wants to share that joy with the teacher. So instead of filling out the ABC page with the rote work of repeating A, B, C, D, I'm just going to go over it. I want to share my joy and look at that. I drew a picture of a musician standing under a tree, and it's wonderful, and it's in color. And the teacher says, that's not what I asked you to do. And so being told that your joys are not important is defeating to this boy, and it drains him of his color, and the color seems to affect his attitude, his joy in the world. And so when his father in the park says, I'm going to try to revive your spirit, and I'm going to be playing the violin in the park for you, it brings some life back to this boy, that somebody is acknowledging his joy. This is a darling film in my mind, and it says something about the joy and the monotony of work, the monotony of school, and the individual joys that we have, and acknowledging the joys in others is very important. I used to say to people when I used to work down in the theme parks down in Orlando, and there are people who live their life in their job, and there are other people who live their life outside of their job. The people who live their life inside their job, when they lost that job, they lost all their friends, because their friends were the people they worked with. And so it was devastating for them to lose their job. And for other people who had lived their lives outside of their job, say, I lost my job, I'll get another one, because my friends are not going to change. My life does not fall apart because of this job. And so seeing in alike that people do not, the father does not live his life through his work, and the son does not live his life through his schooling. They live their life for other things. And for the boy, it is the joy of music. So if we take those lessons and understand that if we look at the actions of characters, it's a lot easier for us to look at films that are full of dialogue. And dialogues can be action, because you can blame somebody, you can appreciate somebody, and so the actions that you take through your words are considered actions if they're meant to move things forward. But if you could reduce every movie down to no words, you'd have to look very specifically at the actions. And so we will go through The Wizard of Oz momentarily to take a look at that. But first, one more story. This, again, is an animated piece that has no dialogue in it. This is considered to be horror. Oh, excuse me, I just dropped something there. It's identified, horror. It may be a little scary because you don't know what's happening. But the animation is this computer graphics are maybe the best I've ever seen in a short film. Really well done. And it's a terrific story, a bit sad, a bit scary at first. So here is La Noria, which is Spanish for the Ferris wheel. Enjoy. Now that you've watched La Noria, the Ferris wheel, uh, let's talk about two things. This is going to sound strange at first, but just bear with me. Um, what is the definition of a weed? So you could have a flower growing in the middle of your lawn, and that would be considered a weed. You could have grass growing in the middle of your flowers, and that would be considered a weed. So I looked up definitions of weed, and I got this terrific one that said a weed is a plant that is not valued where it is growing. It is growing in a place that is not the right place for you at this time. And therefore, a weed can be anything in the wrong place. And so understanding that where you are, and this can be in time, in space, mentally, physically, will identify whether you are a weed or not. Now, new topic. What is a monster? What you just watched considered to like, oh, the monsters came and get. Well, what is a monster? And here's the definition for monster that I'm going to give you. It's one who deviates from normal, acceptable behavior or character or appearance. So it's deviating from normality. It's not normal. What you look like is not normal. What you behave like is not normal. What you act like is not normal. We often refer to people as like, oh, that person is a monster. Somebody who kills defenseless animals is a monster. So if we think about weeds as we don't like weeds because we fear that we could lose something to that weed, that flower in our lawn or that grass in our flowers, as maybe they're stealing water and food and space from the other plants. So with a monster, what we fear is that we might lose something to them. We might lose our lives, our abilities, our freedom. We look at monsters as something that will affect us in a negative way. And in order to be a monster, you don't necessarily need to be a creature like Frankenstein's monster. There's a movie with Jane Fonda called Monster-in-Law, which is about Jennifer Lopez is a woman who is going to marry a man whose mother is Jane Fonda, and so she's referred to as the monster-in-law. And so the way that we shape our understanding of monster doesn't necessarily mean to be grotesque or a creature that seems to be coming after us. A monster could be somebody just sitting in the same room with you, but they prevent you from being the person that you want to be. People, many hundreds of years ago, people looked at manatees for the first time and saw them as monsters because they were grotesque in terms of what they looked like. And so that sense of, we look at manatees now and say, oh, manatees are so darling, eating their lettuce, and they're floating in the water, but they were considered monsters. And for some people who see manatee for the first time, they may look at them and think of they are monsters because they are grotesque in a sense. If you've ever watched the character of Grover on Sesame Street, the blue monster, oh, my name is Grover. Oh, yes, I'm here to save the day. He is considered a monster. After all, his name is Grover Monster. But is he a monster in how he acts or simply in what he looks like? The Shape of Water, the monster in The Shape of Water film, is it really a monster? And so the definition of monster will change depending on what we're looking at, or what we're taking out of who this character is. Some monsters are judged by appearance, others simply by their intentions or what we think their intentions might be. And so if we think that a weed is a plant that is not valued where it is growing, perhaps a monster is a person who is not valued where he or she is. And so in La Noria, the monsters, we think, they're going to come get this child. And in the end, we realize that they may look like grotesque creatures, and we might define that as monster, but their actions say something completely different. Their actions help us understand that what we do for other people is helping us define what is important and what we will accept. And so in La Noria, the monsters may be this boy's feelings for having lost his father. We assume that he's lost his father perhaps in war from the pictures we've seen beforehand, and the ability that this boy is trying to put together this Ferris wheel that his father used to own and is having a difficult time. And in the end, the monsters put together a Ferris wheel that is much more than this boy could ever hope for, and allow him the opportunity to revel in his relationship with his father while he was around. It's a beautiful film. And sometimes when we put the label horror, if I put horror, say, oh, I don't want to watch it, it's a horror movie. Well, that's to confuse you in a sense and make you realize that don't worry about a genre, because the themes within a genre can sometimes transcend what you expect. So you can share a theme in a comedy as well as a drama, something that is a mystery, a coming of age story. So many different types of movies can share similar themes. And don't assume necessarily that monsters are monsters on the inside if they look, awful on the outside. And likewise, don't suspect that because somebody is pleasant to look at, that they are not a monster on the inside. And so La Noria is this boy's journey into his own dealings with his father's loss. He's trying his best to put together this Ferris wheel and using the parts from his father's, and the parts just aren't working properly for him. And so in his frustration of not being able to achieve the goal of completing his father's Ferris wheel, he's disappointing himself. And so perhaps these monsters are coming from within him and allowing him to know that, all is well. You should cherish your memories of your father. And it's all done without words, but by actions and by monsters. Or are they? So let's go back to The Wizard of Oz. We saw earlier Professor Marvel with Dorothy, but if The Wizard of Oz is about before I go to Wizard of Oz, I'm going to go back to that sentence that I give in almost every class. The most important sentence you can take with you when you are about to analyze a story is every story is about someone who wants something and is having trouble getting it. Identifying who that person is, the protagonist, what their objective is, and what the antagonist is, what's getting in the way. So the objective versus the obstacles. Then you get you can apply that to what you're watching in everything. So in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy wants to run away, gets hit on the head, wakes up and doesn't want to run away anymore. So what was she really going for? What was she looking for? And what changed her mind? So during her journey, she's got to, defeat the Wicked Witch. And she thinks by defeating the Wicked Witch, she'll get back to Kansas, where she wants to go. But let's take a look at this. If the antagonist is the person or thing that gets in your way of you achieving your objective, if Dorothy's objective is to get back home, then yeah, okay, the witch can be in the way, but as soon as the witch is melted, Dorothy still has the same problem. So the witch cannot be the antagonist. It can be a complication, but not an antagonist. So people say, oh, well, then it must be the wizard. But when the wizard gets in the balloon and goes off without Dorothy, she still has the same problem. So how does she get home? And in this scene that you're about to see, Glinda has the answer. So if the Wicked Witch of the West is not the antagonist, preventing Dorothy from getting home, and the wizard is not the antagonist for Dorothy getting home, what's getting in Dorothy's way? And the answer is Dorothy is getting in her own way. And how do we know this? Is because, as you just heard, Glinda says, Dorothy asks, will you help me? Can you help me? To which Glinda replies, you don't need help any longer. You've always had the power to go back to Kansas. You've always had that power. She says, I have? He says, well, why didn't you? Well, Scarecrow says, why didn't you tell her before? Because she wouldn't have believed me. So what's holding Dorothy back is Dorothy. She's had it in her the whole time. She could have been happy at home with Auntie Em and Uncle Henry. She had it within herself to make the choice to be happy, to love what she was around, being surrounded by. But she chose not to. She chose to be feeling like she was not important. It was not understood, like many teenagers feel. And so we get to the song. And of course, that is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Let me play that for you now. Pay attention to the lyrics very carefully. And so you've got Dorothy singing about wanting to go someplace over the rainbow. But if you pay careful attention to what she's really asking for, she doesn't want to go on an adventure. That's not what she's asking for. She's looking for that sense of happiness, that sense of belonging. So with that in mind, you take a look at The Wizard of Oz, and if Dorothy is really wanting happiness in her life, that is what she is seeking. She's not trying to run away because she's misunderstood. She's trying to find a way to be happy. Maybe she's, in a sense, she could go as far as saying, perhaps a bit of depression, but she's not happy. And so if you follow Glinda's advice saying you've always had it within you to go back home. And so that's why Glinda says, you wouldn't have believed me if I told you it from the very beginning. So if people say, hey, be happy, you've got it within yourself to be happy. It's like you have to find that out for yourself, that you can be happy if you choose to. Unless, of course, and I want to say, little side note here, I'm not talking about somebody who is clinically depressed, but somebody who's just taking a situation. It's like, I'm not happy. It's like, well, what are you not happy? What is it that you're missing in your life? And so what Dorothy is missing in her life is within her. And the reason we know this is because there's a parallel theme here. The Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion are all looking for something as well. And the Wizard of Oz lets them know that they've had those things within them the whole time. So it's a parallel theme to whatever Dorothy is looking for, the others are looking for and can achieve if they look within themselves. You've got courage. You've got heart. You've got a brain. You just don't have whatever this other thing is, a diploma, a watch, a medal. And so Dorothy has within herself to find the answer. So in a sense, Somewhere Over the Rainbow is a plea for being happy. Why can't I choose to be happy? She gets hit on the head. She wakes up. Oh, I'm so glad to be here again. She has chosen to be happy. It has taken her this journey to Oz for her to find in herself the ability to make the choice to appreciate the people around her and what they do for her, and understand that, she's not alone. We all love her. She just hasn't recognized it yet. And if you're the parent of teenagers, you've been through the struggle. And if you've been a teenager yourself, yeah, you feel like you're not understood. You're this oddball in the world. You are this monster. And so the Wizard of Oz is a story about a girl who wants to run away, gets hit in the head, and realizes that within her, the whole time she's had the choice to be happy and to accept and to love what she has, because there's no place like home. And home can be that farmstead with Auntie Em and Uncle Henry, or home can be self. I've had it within myself. There's no place like home, because within myself, I have the answers of appreciating life. I can be happy if I understand that that's my choice. So, what have you learned, Dorothy? And there you have it. So now my recommendations for feature-length films, which can help you explore the subject of theme in a little more depth. Of course, there are always the episodes of The Twilight Zone, which are always great for analysis. And sometimes the theme there you won't get until you've wrapped up what the entire story is about. Those twist endings are wonderful. But for feature films, I recommend these 5 films. First is Best Picture for 1982, and that is Gandhi, starring Ben Kingsley as Mohandas Gandhi. This, of course, is the tale of the Indian leader who led the world, in showing what one person can do. So, as Gandhi would say, be the change you want to see in the world. He lived a life of themes and helping to impart those themes on others. So, this is as good a place to start as any. Next, 1941, Preston Sturges's comedy Sullivan's Travels, which is the story of a director played by Joel McCrea, who has made a life of making comedy films, and he wants to say something much more significant. He wants to pursue the themes that are important to him, and so he decides that he's going to make a dramatic film called "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" So, side note, the Coen brothers film "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" takes its title from Sullivan's Travels. Sullivan's Travels is a film in which he, as a director, understands the power of storytelling. And because he understands the power of storytelling, he wants to tell a story that says something significant. Next is Oscar-winning film for Best Animated Feature, 2008. That is Disney Pixar's WALL-E. A terrific film, very heartfelt film that owes a lot to, believe it or not, Hello Dolly. And if you have not seen the film, then you don't understand that. If you have seen the film, say, oh yeah, of course, Hello Dolly is important. But it deals with a personified robot, and we get to love this little character, but understand that the themes are much deeper, and the themes that this robot holds to are human themes that indicates that he wants to be human too. Next is one of my absolute favorite films from 1971, an absolute must-see, is Harold and Maude, starring Martha's Vineyard's own Ruth Gordon. One of the most important aspects of this film, and to me, the most significant 3 seconds of this entire movie happens towards the end, where you get to see a tattoo. And that tattoo explains everything about this woman and why she is so cheerful. I would describe the movie as it's about a boy who is obsessed with death, and it is the most life-affirming movie you may ever get a chance to see. Harold and Maude, 1971. Next, the granddaddy of themes because this movie, is one in which the same themes are met with over and over again. So this is what we refer to as parallel themes. The film is Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird. It deals with a Southern lawyer who is trying to raise his two kids well, and seen through the perspective of his daughter Scout, it is how one looks at one's father as well. But with To Kill a Mockingbird, it's a perfect opportunity for you to look at the title. What does the title mean, To Kill a Mockingbird? And there is a scene in the kitchen where Atticus Finch tells his kids, he says, it is a sin to kill a mockingbird. You can shoot all the other, other birds that are problems and squirrels and things, but never kill a mockingbird because it is not doing anything offensive. There's no reason to get rid of it. It's just trying to, serenade us with song. So it is a sin to kill a mockingbird. And that theme, taken to literal levels, indicates something about Tom Robinson and Boo Radley and the kids and Atticus himself. I would also like to add something as an English teacher. There's a character that is in the books, in the book To Kill a Mockingbird, that does not appear in the movie at all. And it is the character of Dolphus Raymond, who is a man who meets the kids outside of the courthouse and offers them an opportunity to have a sip of the bottle that's in his brown paper bag. Now, Dolphus Raymond has a reputation for being a drunk. He lives, he's a white man who lives in the black part of town. He is a man that is looked down upon by many members of the town. And he acknowledges this, and he says, I have no problem with people looking down on me, because if it makes them feel better about themselves, whatever. I'm happy with who I am. And taking that and moving that theme around is like, Dolphus Raymond should be in the movie, but is not. And of course, I would recommend episodes of The Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone are wonderful short stories that often have a twist ending, but sometimes the themes are unexpected. And particularly when the characters don't seem particularly human, to appreciate these themes as a human makes us understand these characters a little bit better. So that is it. Join us again when you can for another film talk. They are you can watch them pretty much in any order, but I would definitely recommend trying to watch all of them to get a full grasp and understanding of storytelling. What else do I need to tell you? If you have any other suggestions for feature-length films that you would like to recommend to other people to concentrate more on the subject of themes, just right down here is where you need to put them. You can subscribe. You can also give us your thoughts about the class today. With that in mind, have a fantastic day. Enjoy movies and find something and encourage other people to explore the world of movies and television in a way that they may have not before. Talk about things in a deeper sense. You'll appreciate them even more. Be well. Bye.